Why am I shrimp not breeding? Well, I have yellow shrimp in here, and I had them outside and I had to move them inside because I wanted to focus on breeding the yellow shrimp. I have cherry shrimp of all colours outside. It's winter in Australia anyway, so it's best for me to bring these guys inside to keep the temp stable. I mean, they're still breeding outside because they've been in those tanks. Those tanks have been mature for, I don't know, a long time now. So this tank I had to redo because I had a planaria outbreak. Well, actually, it wasn't planaria. I didn't even know I had planaria until this happened. I had a pest guy come around and spray the house for termites, and I had driftwood under the house. Long story short, it must have got sprayed. I threw one in the tank. Moments later, I started seeing shrimp all huddling up in groups, like climbing over each other, trying to get to the surface. Some even coming out of the water. I had others kind of just floating around in the current, falling from the sky, as you could say, falling from the top of the tank to the bottom, sitting on their back, like kind of like what cockroaches do when they're about to pass. And I'm like, what the hell's happened? Yeah, I forgot, because I was meant to move. I knew the guy was coming. I was meant to move the driftwood, and I was too lazy that day. I didn't move it. I said, she'd be right. I don't use it anyway. And I know with those kind of things, you can put them outside, and the stuff does wear off after a couple of years. More so if you wet them and then dry them, wet them, dry them, put them out in the sun. That stuff does eventually. But anyway, I ended up using that piece of driftwood again, and I bleached it, put it in buckets of water, bleached it for like a day. It went white, ended up burying it. Long story short, it's back in my tank, and no dead shrimp from it. But the funny thing was, when I put this driftwood in, I had coolie loaches in the tank too, which are pretty susceptible to any difference in water chemistry. But for some reason, nothing happened to them. But I also looked more into the kind of chemicals they use for treating termites, and yeah, the stuff they use is very potent to shrimp, because it actually, like, termites and shrimp are very closely related, even though, you know, difference in related and all that. So yeah, this stuff actually binds shrimp to their exoskeleton. So they do end up dying, and then their generations die too. But luckily, I didn't get any of that, because obviously, but it's meant to happen on contact. It must have been because it was in water. It diluted it. But anyway, long story short, so I had to tear this tank down and redo it. So I thought, I'll put the yellows in and get them breeding, because I had them breeding outside. I'd gotten a couple of nice females off some breeder, and they were buried like the next, because they molt. Generally, if you do the get them stable in their new environment well, and I do the drip method, they will molt. And yeah, they molted, then I had eggs. That's all the breeding I sort of saw. They sort of bred a little bit. They started breeding outside, and then I brought them inside. So now they've stopped breeding again. And the reason is because it takes them a little while to get established. And because this tank is not exactly, it is like the canister filter is mature. I never really changed much when that happened. I just cleaned it out, put it back on, and let this tank run like a couple of weeks before I actually started stocking it again. And now I have the yellows in, and yeah, they've sort of stalled. And that is because the tank's not mature, and the guys haven't been in this tank long enough. So a lot of beginners, when they're wanting to breed cherry shrimp, wonder, like, why are they not breeding? And that's generally why, because they need to get used to new surroundings. And also, when you buy adults from a pet store or breed or wherever, they don't really last too long in your conditions anyway. They will die, but as long as, well, hopefully you'll get some breeding before that, and then their babies will grow up in your tank parameters, and then they'll take off. But the reason why, number one reason why shrimp don't breed is the fact that you got a new tank or you got new inhabitants. Give them about 3 months, and then if they're not breeding, look at your water chemistry. I would say that shrimp generally like acidic water. I wouldn't say too acidic, because you've got to keep your GH, KHs around 6 and 8, so at least they molt. And you also need to do little water changes. Not these like 20%, 30% water changes, just little water changes. And food. The more you feed them, the more they'll be willing to breed, and numbers. The more you have, the more they'll be willing to breed as well. Oh look, I'm getting a little orange one out of the yellows. I don't know where he came from. I think I've got another yellow orange one somewhere. I hope they ain't all go orange. I mean, I don't mind a couple, but I'm looking for yellows, not oranges. So anyway, that's pretty much it. That's, like I said, the ones outside that I've had for years, I mean, they keep breeding. And they're breeding all different, like, I had all like chocolates and reds and all that in one. And then all of a sudden I put them all into one. Then just started getting brown ones and ugly coloured, like see-through, like apparently they're like kind of wild type. And now, after about 6 years, they've started to go with blue, really nice blue ones. You know, I seem to be getting a lot of. Every now and then I'll get the occasional really nice red one or something that stands out. Never yellow. I have not got any yellow. I actually had to purchase all these. These are from Coles, by the way. So they've just bred, and I've got some nice ones in there, and I've got some Coles. So I'll have to start, getting rid of them, or I'll just throw them with the other guys, just to get more of a nice coloured line. That'll take a while, but I love my yellow shrimp, so I've got all the time in the world for these guys. But anyway, thanks for that. Another thing with shrimp, I find that really helps to, duckweed, big plus. Duckweed's a must, I feel, for any shrimp tank, and moss, and driftwood. Driftwood's always good. Live plants, I find, and I think, I guess it doesn't really matter. You can have the high light plants or low light, but I just stick with low lights because they're easy to look after, and you don't have to cut them down every 5 minutes. But anyway, thank you for that. I think I might have forgotten something, but I'm sure I'll probably, if I have forgotten something, I'll probably do a part 2 like I do with everything else. Alright.